us.
Noah, Jonathan, Lloyd,
Hello,
great
sir.
to be with you this morning.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Let's get started with back to Saturday as LSU kind of opened it up, dominated the way they're supposed to against a Southeastern opponent. Some of the things I think we were kind of looking for in that type of game, I think we saw. What were your takeaways Saturday night against the Lions?
Well, before the game, I think we kind of talked about it, that it'd be nice for LSU to go out, score 35 points in the first half, move the football, score some points for a change. As we know, LSU only had 5 touchdowns through their first 3 games. That's exactly what they did. The first drive looked pretty bad. They lost 7 yards on the first play of the game and had to punt a 3-and-out. But then Nussmeier and the offense they threw the ball well. They did not run the ball maybe as well as you would like. You know, when you play a Southeastern, you like to see somebody break off a 40-yard, 50-yard run. But Juwan Johnson did the job there, scored a couple of touchdowns. Defensively, nothing much different there. You know, you are playing Southeastern, an FCS team that is getting paid $750,000 to drive 35, 40 minutes over from Hammond, America, and they know they're going to lose. But still, to hold a team to 30 yards in the first half, that's about as dominant as you can be defensively. I don't care who you're playing. And so that was very good. So, yeah, all in all, I was a little surprised to see Nussmeier come out and take one more series after halftime. I thought that would have been a good time to shut him down, but let him on another touchdown drive. Bauer Sharp, the former Southeastern Lion, who was there for 3 years and then went to Oklahoma. Very nice touchdown. Auditioning for the track team. Nice hurdle into the end zone. That looked good. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to move the needle with the fan base when you play games like this. It's, you know, you can always tell how big the game is by the traffic or lack thereof in Baton Rouge. And I certainly drove right into work Saturday and drove right home. So, you know, I guess it was a decent crowd and still a little hot out there. Definitely not feeling the fall yet, but they did what they needed to do. And now it sets up a huge game. And, you know, 2 things can be true. LSU has done everything they can do so far. I would consider the wins over Clemson and Florida still very big wins. But there's also a question of how good is this LSU team? I think that's a legitimate question to ask, and I think we'll get some more answers this weekend in Oxford.
Definitely. And sticking on Saturday, one more question. I just want to ask you about the quarterback position, both Garrett Nussmeier and Michael Van Buren, the 2 quarterbacks that you saw on the field for LSU. Obviously, Nussmeier's QB1, locked and loaded. He looked comfortable. He looked healthy. Looked like he was back to I said it earlier. He looked like 13 again because since he's made the number change, he hadn't looked quite the same. He finally looked like the Nussmeier we remember, and I think Michael Van Buren won the fan base over as well in the second half.
Yeah, I thought that Nussmeier's touchdown to Xavier Thomas near the end of the first half was vintage Nussmeier, you know, roll right, then whip out a 180, roll left, and throw the touchdown. That's what he does and does well. The whole injury thing has been very interesting. The fact that, you know, on 2 Mondays ago, it's revealed that he's got this, and then a few days later, you know, he's back to what he was. You know, I mean, we never really had time to process what it was or what was going on. We all, you know, the world was ending on August the 5th or whatever date that was. Phones were blowing up with a torn ACL and all that stuff, and that was a big nothing burger. Yeah, you would like to see him push the ball down the field a little bit more. They haven't really. I mean, they've thrown the ball down the field, but, you know, I think a storyline this weekend to watch out for is, you know, Chris Hilton said he got his hands on the football and could have won the game for LSU when they lost in Oxford in 2023 in that crazy shootout. And it would be nice if LSU could finally, you know, slip that guy behind the defense and throw him a 50-yard touchdown. That'd be good to see. But, yeah, Nussmeier, what was he, 273 yards passing in about 3 quarters or so. And then Michael Van Buren did a very nice job off the bench going 10 of 12, throwing a touchdown to Kyle Parker. I think, obviously, LSU was much better at the backup quarterback spot than they were a year ago with A.J. Swan. And so no matter what year it's been, I think since Brian Kelly has been here, the backup quarterback has had to go into the game and play some significant football at some point. So it's always good to have your backup ready, and certainly he's not a guy who's going to be too wide-eyed. He got a lot of playing time at Mississippi State and some big arenas and some big spots. So you think that he'd be ready to go in and help you out if needed.
Turning the page to some news that came out this week, the permanent SEC opponents came out on Monday. LSU draws Arkansas, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M. You're our resident LSU historian, so I wanted to get your take on those three being the teams selected and teams like Alabama and Florida being left out.
Well, Arkansas has always been an interesting thing. You go up to Arkansas, you watch the local news, and you hear them talking about this is our biggest home game of the year, this is our biggest rival, and LSU's never been able to counter that. I mean, we all know what kind of reputation of the boot is. It's kind of a joke, and this big gaudy trophy. And I like going to Fayetteville, especially in the fall. It's a beautiful place, if you like fall and leaves changing on the trees and all that. It's good to go in October. It's not good to go in November when it starts to freeze and it's very, very uncomfortable. But, they've always been kind of, I don't want to say a quirky fit, but it's been really hard to drum that up as a rivalry, even though Arkansas has beaten LSU their fair share of times. Ole Miss, that makes sense. Certainly that goes back to, my parents and their parents before, back to the Billy Cannon days when LSU Ole Miss was the game in college football in the 50s and 60s. And then Texas A&M, I guess they're trying to, when A&M joined the league, I think the SEC made an effort to kind of conjure up this border war. Now once Texas and Texas A&M were no longer playing each other, LSU and A&M played on Thanksgiving a couple of times. I remember Ed Ogeron, that was the night in which they said Tom Herman was getting the job, and that Ogeron got the job a couple of days later in 2016. So that game has always been a game growing up. But yeah, I think the LSU Alabama thing, I don't want to say it's lost some of its luster, but with Saban no longer coaching them, I think some of the intensity has gone away there with that game. Florida, certainly, you've been playing them for a long time, every single year. I don't know of many LSU fans who really enjoy going to Gainesville. Typically, when you talk to them, they don't like the place at all, which is so crazy. Growing up, you think the University of Florida, I was very naively thinking, beaches and water and everything, and it's basically Tuscaloosa with palm trees, So it's not, it ain't South Beach, right? So, I don't know how strongly I feel about it, just for the simple fact that now in this new league, you're going to play everybody home and away within 4 years, and I think that was what was broken with the model, and the fact that people would talk about what's the best SEC town to go to, what's the best road trip, and oftentimes people would say Athens. Georgia's the best road trip. It's kind of the essence of college football, and LSU hasn't played there since Zach Mettenberger was throwing the ball to Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry back in 2013. And Tennessee is another one that a lot of people think is one of the best trips, and LSU hasn't been there since 2017. I think Danny Etling and company were in the rain that night. So that's what you want to see. You kind of want to move it around and your fan base go visit all the different venues, as opposed to, the way it used to be. We're going to Starkville every other year. We're going to Fayetteville every other year, Tuscaloosa, College Station. Now you're going to go to your Columbia, South Carolinas, your Columbia, Missouris, the places you used to have to wait a long, long time to visit. I like that aspect of it.
No, I'm with you. And speaking of venues, let's talk about Death Valley. And next season, LSU will have Texas A&M make their way to Death Valley, Alabama, Texas, and Clemson. That'll be 4 massive football games in Death Valley in 2026. I want to get your thoughts on playing those 4 games at home next year.
Well, it's been a long time coming for Texas. Certainly LSU, as we all know, on the big 3rd and 17, one of the biggest plays of the 2019 national championship season in Austin. And then Texas was supposed to return the trip the next year in 2020. This thing called COVID comes along, and they didn't make the trip. So finally now, after all these years, they're going to be coming to Baton Rouge. I know LSU would like to, if they could, take all their tickets and stick them up in the nosebleed like Texas did to LSU in 2019. But I think there's some SEC rules about that they can't do that. I think they may be doing that to Clemson because it's a non-conference game, and LSU only got 500 tickets in the lower bowl. So it looks like a pretty dynamite schedule. I think certainly better than this year's home schedule, and so that'll be exciting. I guess the question is how many. So you got an uneven number. You got 9 SEC games. So does LSU have? I was a little bit busy. I was at St. Charles Catholic Quarterback Club and at Kim Mulkey's practice yesterday and doing a few other things. Does LSU have 5 home games or 4 in the league next year?
They have 4 home games, 5 away games. They'd go on the road to Arkansas, to Ole Miss, to Auburn, Kentucky, and Tennessee.
Okay. Well, there you go. Auburn, I missed that trip. I think that, Jordan-Hare Stadium, Auburn, I think that's like the essence of college football, too. It's kind of like Clemson. It's this little small town, and it's got this huge stadium in it. And, I always like going to Auburn. I think they do a really good job. So, I'm glad that's back, and the Tennessee trip will be cool. So, yeah, I think this goes back to maybe a little bit, too, of, Brian Kelly sometimes getting animated and a little worked up and maybe feeling the pressure that, that they need to do something this year and make the playoff because things aren't going to get any easy moving forward. I think a year from now, he'd like to be saying, well, cut me some slack. We made the playoff last year. And if they don't make the playoff this year, I think that's a legitimate question. When will they make the playoff? You've got your veteran quarterback. You've got, as Lane Kiffin said, the 3 most expensive defensive backs that were in the portal. LSU got them all. Your defense is highly, highly improved. You have a very, very good roster, and so I don't know if they're going to wind up 10-2 like a lot of us predicted, but certainly they need to make a playoff and get in this year.
When you look at the 2 team schedules between LSU and Ole Miss, obviously before the year, I think people would have said the wins that LSU has garnered, whether it be beating Clemson or what they've done so far up into the year, being able to. I guess they didn't score the way that you'd like them to, but they've played well being able to beat a Florida team before the year that was probably highly regarded. Now, if you look at Ole Miss's wins, which one would you say has more impressive wins up to date as of the 2025 season, LSU or Ole Miss?
So Ole Miss has beaten Arkansas, and who else have they beaten?
Kentucky.
They got it.
And Tulane.
Yeah. I think Tulane this past weekend is a combination of Ole Miss played really well, and I think Tulane kind of feels like they flubbed. They didn't play nearly as well as they could have. I think Tulane, they went into that game only a 10.5-point underdog, so Tulane was viewed to be competitive, and they weren't. They couldn't score any points, and certainly Chambliss threw and ran all over them. I think that LSU probably going into Clemson as their season opener, and then Florida's got a lot of talent. I know people who know football say that. They offensively, obviously, they've struggled and haven't been able to score any points, but they do have a lot of defensive talent. I would lean towards LSU. That their wins are a little bit bigger, despite the fact Clemson struggled and Florida struggled. Arkansas, I watched them this past weekend. They had a 28-10 lead in the Liberty Bowl and are on the 7-yard line about to either win the game with a field goal or a touchdown and fumble the game away. So I know they're 2-2, and Sam Pittman. I think everybody really likes Sam Pittman, but it looks like he might be on his last leg there in Fayetteville. So I would lean in the way of LSU, although I think once again we still don't really know how good they are. And my big thing about this game, if you're LSU, is where are the rushing yards going to come from? Caden Durham, when healthy, has not been getting a lot of yards. He's got an ankle thing, right? And then, Caleb Jackson, they complimented him and said he had his best game. But, from what I remember, he was kind of catching a couple swing passes and doing a couple things against Southeastern when the game was already decided. Trey Holly's over at Southern. Lindsey's still in, as Les Miles would say, a legal entanglement. And, Jawan Johnson, I don't think he was brought to LSU to run the football and maybe be a big offensive piece. But after looking at the way he played this past weekend, he does make people miss and he does give a little shake. So is he going to play a pivotal role in LSU winning this game this weekend? I think that LSU has somebody put this to me, said, I think LSU has neither a great offensive line, neither a great running back, and that's kind of a bad combination. Now, maybe they can prove us wrong between now and the end of the year, but I think we detailed it pretty well. If you go all the way back from Billy Cannon and through the 80s, your Dalton Hilliards, your Gary James, your Harvey Williams, your Kevin Fawkes, your Cecil Collins, your Leonard Fournette, Darius Geis, Jeremy Hill, Stephen Ridley, we can go on and on. Do they have that running back there that you say, hey, it's 3rd and 1, here we go? I'm not bagging on Caden Durham. He's only a sophomore, and he's done a lot of great things. I just don't think the running game and the running back room is where it needs to be right now.
I agree. And talking about Saturday versus Ole Miss, what do you kind of expect in this football game where you've got a high-powered offense? Obviously, a lot of eyes are going to be on the chess match between Lane Kiffin and Blake Baker. What are you looking forward to Saturday versus Ole Miss?
Well, it's going to be an intense atmosphere. I think it's the fans are told to wear red, so you're going to have a whole stadium full of red. It's not, for those of you who've been there before, it's not College Station, it's not Bryant-Denny Stadium, it's not the Swamp, it's not Tiger Stadium as far as how loud it gets, but it's pretty intense. It's funny to look back on the stories. I remember Matt Mock told me in 2003, he's on the bus, he looks outside, and a 7-year-old gave him the bird, flipped him off. And he's like, this little 7-year-old flipping me off, and then I think Nick Saban said that he'd never got so many one-finger salutes in his life as when they went to Ole Miss and won that big game against Eli Manning in 2003. So, hate is a word you don't like to toss around, but Ole Miss and their fans have no love for LSU. I know there's a lot of families that are, that are married in, LSU fans marrying Ole Miss people, vice versa, but I still think there's a lot of intensity there, and you think that LSU should beat Ole Miss, the whole runt thing, but certainly LSU the last 2 times they've gone over there, they've lost. And so I think that, like you said, I think we finally, I don't say finally, but Blake Baker's defense last year, different personnel for sure, but certainly struggled against your Marcel Reeds, your Milroe from Alabama. The running quarterback obviously gave them fits and propelled them to lose 3 games in a row. And certainly this year they shut down Klubnik pretty good, but this guy looks like Chambers, looks like he can run a bit. And so I think that's a big thing to keep that guy from rushing for 100 yards and keep him in the pocket and just see how really good this defense is going up against a Lane Kiffin offense who, will do a lot of things to wear out your defense, make them run side to side, score a lot of points. I mean, I could believe it, and I could not believe it when I look back at the 2023 box score. I certainly remember Ole Miss scoring 55 points against LSU, but the 706 yards was just, staggering. The fact that LSU gave up 706 yards to Ole Miss in 23.
Sickening.
Scored 49 points on the road in an SEC game and still lost. That was, and I think Kelly has referred to that as definitely the low point in that defensive or lack thereof regime. So I think the question is, LSU scored 49 points that day. How many points can LSU score this time around if the running game isn't going and you got the crowd up against you? Can LSU score 30 in this game and win it? I think that's the question. LSU's a 2.5-point dog in the game. They're not supposed to win. But if they can somehow win and get to 5-0 at the bye and rest some people up and then continue to attack the gauntlet, they're obviously in great shape.
LSU has played 4 games up to this point, and this year they've given up 781 yards in 4.
There you go. Great. That's great research, Lloyd. I didn't do that research myself. And look at you, just popping that thing out like that, popping those stats out. So, they intercepted, 5 passes against Florida, and I think as a team they intercepted 6 all of last year.
Right.
So it just goes to show you. And Olsen certainly deserves his share of credit. The safeties are intercepting passes back there. The Deshaun Spears and Halsey and Cooley have done their job. Yeah. So I think everyone deserves their share of credit there in that defensive room.